So welcome to District 4, to the point with information and news. I am your host, A-Love. In a relaxed setting today. I definitely didn't have, I gave myself a little me time, and then I was watching and realized that I wanted to cover this trial that's going to be coming up. So we're going to talk top trials, we're going to talk trials to track, and this is definitely one when it involves younger people. But before we get started, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We don't do anything without you, and again, we are still trying to transfer people over from the other two channels onto this one, and I need to take more. So don't think I don't know that already, but I did tell you at the beginning when I was starting the channel, I was starting to campaign at the same time, so it kind of takes a lot of time. We're 88 days in, so 88 days left. So you will probably start to see more of me as time goes on. But I do want to make sure I cover some things that are just very great with information, and then this combines it with news. It's about young people, and I am very much interested in the youth and maybe solving a lot of their problems and upsets before it gets to a full-grown adult that is making these same decisions with larger consequences. But in this particular case, the consequences are going to be pretty heavy. We're talking about if they are convicted, they meaning the 6 to 7, what would now be the defendants because they've been indicted already. We're talking about the case of Preston Lord. And 16-year-old victim. Let's break down the story. This is basically what I call a mob killing. It's quoted as a gang-style killing with a group of slightly older individuals coming after a younger person, still in sort of the age range, for various reasons. I would later go into detail with the story and figure out this sort of happened fast, according for the victim's point of view, right? Tell a little bit of the story. So they're out. This is happening in Maricopa County. This is Arizona, for those of you that don't know, around October. I believe it's 2024. And we have a group of young people, teenagers, at a Halloween party that was thrown by one of their other peers, right, for example. And it's taken place, the party's almost coming to an end. Our what would soon be victim is leaving with the people he came with, or with some people that he was well acquainted. When he is attacked by these 7 individuals, the victim, Preston Lord, originally was struck in the face, falls to the ground, and he is gang mobbed, beating. Okay, they're kicking him, they're punching him, they're stomping on him, they are doing everything under the sun. Prior to that, there was a chain taken. Now he's with other individuals, but they run, and the victim doesn't get away. They don't all run. The victim's friends run first, and then he attempts but never gets a chance to run. He makes it a little bit ways out of the street. Out to the street, because he was already leaving in the first place, so he's going a little bit farther, but doesn't get very far before this group of individuals come in and stomp him and kill him to death. Ultimately, he dies from multiple, from hemorrhaging and multiple, what did they call it? The coroner said it was technically considered hemorrhaging, severe hemorrhaging from multiple areas. So because they were stomping on him, beating him. Look at my notes for those of you who don't know, just to make sure I don't need anything. And they steal something. The charges end up being because they got indicted. They were found and indicted. Now, here's the interesting thing for me. One, the mob mentality part of it. You know, here you are. It never changes. It's something that I want to stop in youth as much as I can. And my particular generation, they did address peer pressure, or what was called peer pressure back then, and how not to fall for it, to be more of an individual thinker. But they don't address that in schools. And it still exists. So that sort of mob mentality, that sort of group mentality that gets, you know, the leader of the group, as it were, to get other people recruited into his or her bad way. Because you have to have bad intentions. It's never about just the theft, or just the beating, or just the manifestations of the problems of the individuals that end up getting involved in this situation. But it starts in particularly with the thought that you're a part of something, or maybe you feel like you don't want to go against, or you sort of get sucked in by the adrenaline rush of it all, to make a situation like this happen. And there's a psychology behind it for sure. And it's something that happens when you're young. The youngest person I know of that murdered or killed or committed a heavy crime was 8. 8. So gone are the days where we can say, oh, young people don't, you know, it's not in them to commit crime. There was a time in the 50s and 40s where they didn't think it was in a young person to especially of that age, 8, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way up to adulthood, to actually commit a crime like that, lie, let alone commit a crime. And they have proven over time to be able to do both. And we need to stop it as early as we can, which tracks me to cases like this. It's because I feel like we don't act fast enough. This person is young, and we go, oh, they're young, you know, they killed a dog, you know, it's fine. You know, it's never fine, because it leads into that same mentality going into that adult. The onlookers to this is another shocking part of it. There were 400 witnesses. 400. That is 100 less than Jesus' resurrection, which was 500. 400 people. And this young man still ended up dead. Now, according to the police officer that was on the scene at the time, one of them, he said basically he was first struck, as I said earlier, he meaning the victim, and then really stomped on and beat, but in a matter of seconds. It didn't even take a long amount of time for this situation to happen. Like, it could have happened that fast. He said a matter of seconds. The attack just lasted that long. He was hit, struck, beat, stomped, and whatever happened left basically to hemorrhage, to death, and to death. Ultimately, he died 2 days later. He was taken off of life support. But with all of that bleeding and all of that hemorrhaging and all of the internal damage, because believe it or not, he was a healthy young person, he meaning the victim. It was said by the doctors that examined him that he actually never had one broken bone. His spine wasn't broken, his bone, I mean, he was physically fit, for lack of a better description. And it was all the blunt trauma, which is what their ultimate charge will be, the murder charge. First degree murder, they're accused of first degree murder. Blunt force trauma in multiple areas. So it came from not just one, like you might hear that, liken it to like one hit in the head or something, like with an object. This is with their physical bodies. Blunt force trauma, multiple blunt force traumas, resulted in hemorrhaging and ultimately him, meaning the victim, Preston, to pass away. Now, if you haven't captured all of that yet, let's go into who these assailants are, or these defendants. So it was October 30th when ultimately the victim passed, taken off of life support. And then February, it was ruled a homicide. And then in March, they arrested the defendants, or what will now be the defendants, because they have been indicted. Someone always asks me, what does indicted mean? Indicted just basically means you have to have enough to take it to trial. So when you hear someone's been indicted, they're basically saying, yeah, we've got enough stuff to take this to trial and go all the way. So it's a fancy way of saying that, basically. We have 7 on the books, but 6 in the trial, or the future trial, which is scheduled to take place in July of 25. The dates vary, between the 21st and the 25th. The judge wants it to go quickly, so he wants to make it as soon as possible, but 25th was the date for July in 2025 originally. It has what the judge's desire to want to keep it the trial, as cases like this can get out. The judge is Bruce Cohen, just to let you know. He will be presiding over this case, and again, the 7 suspects, but 6 seem to have been the ones that were indicted. So I don't know if that's going to carry over by the time it actually goes to trial, but there were 7 seen at the scene committing the crimes. The crimes are aggravated robbery for 2 of the defendants. Kidnapping, I'm not sure where that makes a play because I haven't heard that part of the story. And then first degree murder. Those are all the charges that they will be charged with. Now the judge does not, as already stated, that he does not want them all in the courtroom at the same time. Now I don't know if that meant that he would have different trials or he would just not have the defendants present each day at the same time. I'm not exactly sure that they didn't make that clear. So here we go. We have Tristan Bailey, 19 years old. William Owens Hines, 18 years old. Jacob Meisner, 17 years old. Talon Renner, 17 years old. Taylor Sherman, 19 years old. Dominic Turner, 20. And Tylen Vigil, only 18. They were a little bit older than the victim and his friends, who were like 16, around the same age. They're all in the same age range, but a part of a separate group than the actual victim. So this could have been a case of just observation. The damaging, sad part about crimes today is that they're observational, they're opportunist, they're sort of generated at the time. The swift thinking of Gen Z kind of goes with the instant gratification thought process. So it could have easily been that they just cooked this ridiculous thing up. A slight comment made that hit somebody. You never know emotionally, speaking from a psychological standpoint, what triggers somebody. It looks different than it did back in the days when it wasn't as commonplace. Triggers back then, or before psychology advanced, looked one way. You either snapped and everything happened, which still happens, but there's a different version of it. It's a recruitment trigger. You're triggered, you want to do something, you don't want to do it alone, so you recruit people, and you start getting in the head of people. I never did like him, or he always thinks he's better than people, or whatever people say that are trying to recruit people. And it also goes into that mob mentality that people need to learn to think for themselves. I hate to see it, and it doesn't change when you get older. For those of you that are young watching, it doesn't change. You have to make the point to change it in yourself if you don't have that rebel without a cause thought. Process. Not that you have to be a rebel all the time, but you must break away, which is a level of rebelliousness from your peers if they're doing something that could lead to this. Because when it all goes down and you end up going to jail, they can't stand up for you. They need to take care of themselves. So you're in there by yourself with your charges, serving time for your crime. or your part in that crime. You guys go down as individuals. You don't go down as a group. Even in a conspiracy, you still get your own time. So I think people don't think about that when they're doing something ridiculous. You just feel a part of something. And it's really how peer pressure is taught, that don't get caught up in feeling a part of something. To fill this empty space that you might have. People like this mentality tend to attract each other. And it's because there's an emptiness there. For one reason. All right, so I'm going to follow this trial. It's very important. I feel like it's interesting to see how these charges take place. Some of these adults, technically speaking, that the 19 and 18 and 20-year-olds, you will be tried as an adult. They're not going to say you're not going to be tried as an adult because you're with younger people. It doesn't work like that. You're going to be tried as an adult. Period. You are one. So you should have had better judgment if you didn't step in to stop everybody from what they were doing. And then the younger people, you're close. You're 17s. Only the victim was under 17. Everybody else was 17, 18, 19, 20. Old enough to know better. Even 16-year-olds should be old enough to know better. You know, so that's what happened in this case. Just a regular Halloween party, gathering of people, and it turns into murder. As murders often do. Victims are picked, targeted. You know, it's first degree. And I have to say, people go, well, maybe they just, planned it just to happen. And that is second degree. They're on trial for first degree. That is premeditation. That is the most severe level because it takes a depraved heart. Meaning you just don't have good intentions going into the situation. You didn't have good intentions, period. And you thought about it. And it really means to the court, you had a chance to change your mind. That's what depraved heart and all that means. When you boil down first degree murder, why it is so severe and so different from, say, heat of the moment crime, second degree murder, it is because in that moment, in that time, sometime before this actually happened and this person life was ended, you had a chance to go, I'm not going to do it. This probably might be the right thing. So you had a chance to think it over. And it's not the duration of time, but even in a moment right before you strike the person, if you had a chance to be like, I don't have to do this, that's all the court needs. They need to know that you had a chance to rethink this and you just didn't take it. So we'll see what happens. Of course, stuff comes out during the trial, and I'm interested to see the details of how this happened and what the victim's family is another part of this, but also what the defendants themselves were thinking at the time. Like, what are you thinking? Like, what drove you to go to this extent? You're always going to find people most of the time in a case like this that say they didn't really want to do it, and everybody talked them into or forced them, or you felt victimized at the time, and the mentality of these 400 witnesses that didn't do it. Did they know what was going on at the time? Was it outside and they weren't able to, what were they thinking? So this will be an interesting case to follow. In particularly, the final part of this, when I spoke about it a little bit earlier, are the family. The family took up the cross for this victim. They are not gonna stop. They are going to make sure that justice for Preston Ward happens. And they've been in this case since pre-indictment. They were pushing. And I think that's the best way to do it, because I feel like that's what I would do, and I feel like that's what a lot of families do. This is his whole family advocating for him and making sure that he gets justice. So, interesting story for me. I will follow this trial. I'll keep you updated, and then when they actually go to trial, I will be there and hopefully record it and be there in real time. Thank you so much. Like I said, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for watching.